If you want to blow up on TikTok right now, I'll give you one good example of something you can do is you can stand in front of a camera, pretend to act like an NPC and just say ice cream so good over and over again. You'll make a bunch of money.
Ice cream so good. Yes, popcorn.
I mean, whatever makes the money, man. If you see me out there on TikTok, ice cream's so good. Don't say anything. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Growing Together podcast with me, Sunny Vasquez.
And me, Cesar Santos.
A podcast where we talk about everything under the sun related to growth and becoming the very best version of yourself. We're back with another episode. We've been super inconsistent. There's just been a lot going on in life.
That, and then also tied with that, we have another episode banked, which by the time this one has gone out, we've already seen it.
Yeah.
So that would have been the Hot Ones episode.
It hurts really bad. Oh my god. This isn't fun anymore.
Yeah, and it's taken a minute to edit and
it's definitely
get together. So we've been, it's just been kind of chaotic with me and Cesar both. Like, obviously we have full-time jobs and we're trying to figure out a good, I think, balance between like our work and then our passions and then also like having time to do things like run, which we're training for a marathon. I mean, are you really training for a marathon if you don't tell everyone you're training for a marathon?
We're doing that too, getting back in shape. So and I'm also sick if you can't hear that already.
Yeah, Cesar's just got a little tickle in his throat, but we still ran this morning. So we're trying to get back on a better routine. It's just been, honestly, just chaotic. And I think sometimes, like, despite how bad you want to do something, you let the exhaustion get the best of you. And I think when, like, Cesar and I, we love doing this podcast. And when we can't give it, like, our entire effort, we just don't record. And then it also, like, it's not just recording the episode. It's, like, editing it, making sure it's like good quality, you know, because we pride ourselves in like what we do.
Making sure that it's 100% and that we deliver. And we're always trying to get better with every edit and the way we deliver and present this podcast. I know it's something that I've always told Sunny is like, there's got to be a way where we can balance and make this podcast a format like every other successful podcast that has a format and has a subject and you talk about certain things. But anyways, let's get into it, by the way. I'm over here ranting about something.
No, I mean, it's true. And the other thing is Cesar has to edit it because I'm not the most efficient video editor. So that's on my to-do list of learning how to get better at it. But I always let Cesar edit it because he's better at it and he's quicker. Like if I were to edit the podcast, it would take me much longer because I'm just not as proficient in like Adobe Premiere and like audio, all that good stuff. Nonetheless, we're back with another episode. Before we get into it, how are you doing? We're actually recording this at night, which is the first time we've recorded an episode.
It's not super late, but it's like, what, 8 o'clock?
It's 8:30.
8:30. Yeah, it's been a good day. We hung out with our neighbors / friends / best friends.
/ friends / best friends.
Which you saw on our last podcast, eating hot wings.
Yeah.
And it was fun.
I think it's definitely nice now that like Cesar and I have been in Nashville since February, which seems like crazy that it's August because it doesn't feel like we've been in Nashville that long, but we've made friends and honestly, like, Kat and Elijah are like our best friends here and it's fun to hang out with them and to like have game nights and go and do things and just, it like kind of like awakens that like just happiness in me that like we have like people to talk to and just like laugh and bond over random things and have like conversations about things because I mean it's been a minute since we've had that, so
for sure
it's definitely good. But today it's funny because we were at dinner. We went to this Mexican restaurant called El Toro Loco.
El Toro Loco, yeah,
it's really good.
I would say it's the best. We've had a couple Mexican places around here. I would say right now it's the top.
Yeah, from the places we've had. We've only had 3. So the top Mexican restaurant that we've had so far. And I was actually telling them about what this podcast would be about. And I wanted to talk about today, like the social media algorithm and how social algorithms shape the experience that we have online. To get into it, what do you think when I say that?
I mean, I think of a lot of things. I think of like what is an algorithm nowadays to what it was before, to what it's becoming now, even more like as we move forward into the future. Slowly but surely, more and more of these algorithms are being driven by AI versus the before, not to get too deep into it right now, but before algorithms weren't AI driven. It was just more based on, I mean, there was some machine learning, but not to the extent that it is now.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, you like this, and there's something else that's similar to this. You might like that. Now it's like even deeper than that. It's like, oh, wait, your age is this. You're this old. You make this much money.
Yeah.
And you've also liked this. You've also interacted with this other post on this other website. So based on that, it's like, and now apparently the algorithms are getting to the point where they know what you want before you even think about it, which is why sometimes we get creeped out by like how we're talking about like Taco
Something,
Bell
and there's
or
something,
like,
an ad.
and then you pull your phone up and it's like, I was just talking about this. It's
Yeah.
like, it's because the AI, it's not because maybe, well, it could be due to the fact, maybe it's your phone's listening to you, but the other fact is that, no, it's because
It's like Silo.
it's like, it's like there's eyes
listening.
everywhere, you know, like.
I don't know if you
yeah.
guys seen the show Silo, but they're like in the show Silo, they're listening. Like they not only have like cameras on them, but they have audio, so they can hear what you're saying, which is crazy. Yeah, so the reason I wanted to talk about it because like the algorithm it does shape the experience we have online, and the experience we have online essentially shapes us as people and shapes how we grow and how we view things, our perspectives, all of that good stuff. And it's especially interesting to me because I have a job, I think we both have jobs that rely heavily on an understanding of the algorithm and what the algorithm wants and how to be successful given the algorithm.
And which algorithm?
Like social media algorithms. So
Yeah,
like
no,
YouTube,
yeah, of course,
Google, all of
all
them.
of that.
That's what I'm talking about with social algorithms.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to get started, I think it's interesting to talk about the history of the algorithm because I don't know if you remember this time period, but when Instagram was first a thing, even if you think back to MySpace, the feed that you had was in chronological order. So you were getting fed what like the most recent post was based on who you followed. It wasn't these ads. It wasn't like people you didn't follow or influencers. It was like just the people you followed, and you could see, you know, the post based essentially based on who posted the most.
Yeah.
You know? And then they developed, I don't even know when it was. I feel like maybe it was in like 2016. They developed this algorithm where you were going to be fed content based on like their algorithm and not based on chronological order. And I don't know if you remember that time, but I remember people being pissed about that they were going away with chronological order of posts.
I remember it was on Facebook. It was all interest based. So it was based on your interactions. It was based on the things you liked, again, interactions. Also pages that were most liked too as well would also be fed to you. If you liked a certain thing, you know, like if you liked a certain band, then you might like this band or whatever it was. And yeah, I remember people were pissed. They're like, I want to know what's like, you know, most up to date. Like what's
well,
up
it's
to
not
the
even
minute,
that they
you know?
wanted to know what was most up to date. They wanted to know what's going on with the people they actually follow. I
Yeah.
think that was a huge thing on Facebook is people wanted to know like what is like my family doing, and you were no longer being fed like these posts from people you knew. You were just being fed all of like this what seems like crap that you didn't really want to subscribe to. And I see the same thing on Instagram where like Instagram will feed you things of people you don't follow. It's ads, and like it became this space where like it's no longer about creating a great experience for you. Like it's more about like feeding you what they think you want to see based on previous actions. But like that can only tell you so much about a person if you look at like what they do online, you know? So it's not a perfect solution, you know? You might think that you're giving the user in a sense what they want, but even today if you go on Facebook, for instance, I share this podcast, but you know what Facebook doesn't do is they don't show people my post because it's linking out to a video that's going to take them off the platform, and they don't like that, which is interesting because people may want to see that content, but they're not going to show it because they don't. It doesn't benefit the platform, and I just think it's interesting because today we're aware of the algorithm. Everyone is aware that there's algorithms on TikTok, there's algorithms on Facebook, on Instagram, and we're aware that it exists. Even on Google, obviously there's a Google algorithm, and it decides what you get to see. That we forget that there was a time where we weren't living in this period where essentially an algorithm decided what we see. It was the platform itself, like it was based on like who shared stuff, who posted stuff. But the problem the problem we have is that today there is a bunch of content, and there does need to be a way to sort it and a way to show people the content in a way that's not overwhelming, hence where like an algorithm comes into play. And I think it's important to talk about like the purpose an algorithm has, because as much as we see it as something that could be preventing us from seeing like what we actually want to see, it's also, there's a purpose behind it. So like if I asked you, what do you think the purpose of algorithms in the sense of social media is, what would you say?
I would say it's a system that is designed to give the best user experience. What they think the best user experience is, like what they want to feed them, you know. So Instagram, for example, might be videos, not so much photos anymore.
But that's because Instagram started to favor videos.
Yeah, and I was going to say like Snapchat.
And that's not because people started to favor videos, it's because Instagram was like, we're going to go with video.
Because everyone else was doing video.
Yeah.
Yeah, because all the other companies, for example, I was mentioning Snapchat. Snapchat's like, I don't really think the Wild West still of algorithms. Is theirs is very interesting because it's also video based and story based, and they even have a what you would call a magazine stand on the Discover page, where only certain people are allowed to create content on for that page, and then with that content they'll actually feed you like, oh, you might be interested in this story or this story because of what you've interacted with before, but then also what you've clicked on YouTube or Google, because they also have access to that data too, even though you tell them not to get access to it, they still do somehow. And then, same with TikTok. They know exactly they know what you like. And so then you might be interested in content either related to it or maybe something that you might have never actually thought of. And then like they feed you something random and you're like, oh, I don't like that, or whatever the case is. So I think an algorithm is it's designed and tailored towards getting people to watch something they might like, you know. So.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they will say, an algorithm is intended, the first purpose of it is to give the user what they want and the experience they want. So based on basically a bunch of if-then statements. If they like this video, there's a likelihood that they'll like this video too, and you'll continue to get content related to things that you like and interact with. If they see that you're engaging with a certain type of post, they're going to give you that type of post. So I think at that very baseline, the intention is good. They want to give you what you're already enjoying.
Yeah.
Makes sense. The other thing is they want to prioritize things that make them money. So like advertising, they're going to prioritize ads because ads make that platform money. The other thing is they're going to prioritize things that make people stay on the platform. Yeah. That's why I think we talked about it last night. TikTok is wanting to get into podcasting because a lot of people do share podcasting clips on TikTok in order to help reach their, get brand awareness and get people to their podcast, which is essentially off the platform. And that doesn't benefit TikTok. It benefits the other platform that they go to watch the podcast. So I think it's interesting because the algorithm, I think the original intention is that you're going to get things that you want to listen to and that you want to enjoy and that align with what they know about you based on the data that they have about what you engage with. But at the same time, it has these kind of harmful effects in the sense that you're only going to get that content that aligns with what they know about you. You're not going to get something, you might get something that to see whether you like it or not, but it kind of prevents you from seeing the other side of things. The other, there's so much content that it creates this separation. Me and you, for instance, even if me and you were to scroll TikTok on our phones right now, we're getting a completely different feed because we're completely two different people. We like certain things on TikTok, and so we'll never have that same experience because we're different people.
And it's interesting, too, to bring to that the matter of that fact that you just stated, is that you could, if we got a phone, a brand new phone, or even just wiped our phones and create a new TikTok account, you can tune TikTok to give you certain things.
Yeah.
There's this really scary story. Oh, I wouldn't call it scary, but a really sad story, actually, of a boy. I think he was probably a teenager, maybe 14, 15, 16. And he was depressed. He was sad, and he was going on TikTok, and TikTok kept feeding him these like. First, it started feeding him motivational content, like he liked like all these like really cool posts, like go out and do everything, like you be better. But then for some reason, the algorithm started he started liking things that were sad, and then next thing you know, he started getting content of like literally people saying you should go off yourself. And that was a couple of the posts, the last things that he saw on TikTok were those things. And then he unfortunately ended his life. And it's scary to think that over a period of time he was on that platform. There's these really weird videos being fed to him, and not to say that the platform is obviously liable for this, but it has something to do with.
It has to do with the algorithm feeding you what you interact with. Yeah, and like sometimes what you're interacting with isn't the best thing. And that's the problem is like when you have that information about something. I mean, I've been on the side of TikTok where like I'm upset and I'm liking videos that are inherently sad, and it just keeps on feeding me more and more, and it's just you're kind of in this endless loop, like if you don't get yourself out of it, you're going to continue liking that stuff, you're going to continue seeing it, and it's going to base what you want to see on like how you feel that day, essentially. Like I could probably go a day where I like a bunch of like running TikTok, so the next couple of days I'm getting a bunch of runners and content around running, and then the next day like I might get something else. I might start liking a bunch of other different type of things, and it really is, I mean, that's kind of why I want to talk about it, because when you think about our online presence and how we're really chronically online, it is important what we're consuming. I don't know how to phrase it, but it's that piece where like these algorithms determine what we consume can be kind of, I don't want to be dramatic, but life changing or life altering, because if you're getting a certain type of content, it could really impact the way you think. And when I was doing some research on the subject of like social media algorithms, there's some talks about how there's like a negative side of these social media algorithms when it comes to learning. For instance, there's a lot of people who will go on TikTok and try to teach others about something. And it's not to say that others don't know, like there's not humans out there that just know an abundance about a certain subject, but we tend to put a lot of trust in these people on the internet that we don't know, that are teaching us about things that we don't know about. So we kind of inherently trust them because we don't know about it anyway. Like if I tell you all this information, for instance, I've been talking about Roth IRAs because I feel like they're so confusing. If I tell you all this information about Roth IRAs and how to set up a Roth IRA, I'm kind of inclined to believe you because I don't know anything about it, right? Like I don't know how it works, but you're saying that you know. So I'm kind of inclined to believe you, even though like I don't know who you are or why I should trust you.
There's what you're saying here. There's a term for this. It's like there's like I don't know if it's a psychological term or something, and it's like you're relying on someone's expertise. So like the same way when it comes to like buying something, you're usually nowadays, especially if you're buying something expensive, you research it, and then you go on YouTube, Google, and like if it's like an electronic, or maybe it's a book or a movie or whatever it is, and you might read a review on it, or you might watch a review on it, and then you're trusting that expert, right, quote unquote expert, who's giving you the information to help you make a better decision about this.
But and that's what's crazy though too, is like in the age of like, this doesn't have so much to do with the algorithm, but it does have to do with like nowadays it's kind of funny because we have the term influencer, and it is what they are, because they influence other people to follow a certain type of life or to buy certain things. So like influencers that do like brand partnerships, brands partner with them because they know that people can be influenced by people that seem like them. Like, oh, that girl's just like me. She likes this product. Why don't I try it? But there's also kind of for me, when I know that someone's getting paid to do an ad, I'm less likely to be like, I actually don't know if it's good because you're getting paid to tell me it's good. Yeah. I don't know your morals. I don't know that you actually like the product. All I know is that this is a sponsored post and they're paying you. You may say like, oh, I only work with brands that I like, but how do I know that? Because I don't know you as a person, you know? So like, it's interesting because there's like a trust of people that we see online because we see a certain part of them and see genuine, but like then there's also like a mistrust of like, this is a sponsored post and I don't know whether I should trust it because you're getting paid to do this. Whereas if someone wasn't getting paid to do this and was saying I just genuinely like this product, you're more likely to trust them. But the other thing too is, yeah, I mean, the algorithm's going to show you what they think you want to see. And like sometimes what you want to see isn't what you need to see.
That's good. I mean, what would be a good example of that? Because that is a great point. Sometimes what you want to see isn't what you need to see. And like,
I think I kind of, if I'm going down the same path, it's kind of like sometimes like you may want to hear something, like you may want to hear that you're doing a good job, but you may not be, and you may need to hear like, hey, you need to step up. And I think that the algorithm doesn't, unless you're in a good place as a person, unless you're working yourself and self-aware of what you need, the algorithm can really harm you in the sense that it's entirely based on your mindset at the time. You know, like it's entirely based on how you're feeling in that moment. And it's just not, I don't know, it can just be harmful. And I think like, I don't know, it's really hard, but I think that like there's good and bad when it comes to like, you know, the social media in general, but like also the social media algorithm, because there's a lot of information to be found. Like obviously information is now widely accessible, not just because of social media, but because of the internet. But you can also learn from people that are like you, which kind of motivates you. Like for instance, a good example of like a good influence social media has had on me is that I'm on Book Talk. And when I tell you I haven't read in like years, I hadn't, because like reading was something I had to do in school. And then once I wasn't in school, I didn't do any of it. Then I see Book Talk, and there's a bunch of people like very passionate about these books they read. And it kind of motivated me. It motivated me to be like, I want to read these books. I want to experience what these people experienced. And so now I read a lot more because I was influenced by a specific side of TikTok. And that doesn't have a negative impact on me. It has a good impact because now I'm reading and now I'm feeling more creative. Now I'm, I have a hobby outside of work, which is essentially good. Or, for instance, I'm on running TikTok too. And I can't say like that didn't motivate me to want to run a marathon too. Like, obviously, me and you have been runners in the past, and then we kind of stopped. But now we're getting back into it. But I'm definitely motivated when I see other people posting like their running vlogs and like running tips. So that's a good side because I get fed things that like are aligned with like where I'm at in my life right now. Or like when people are making dramatic changes. I get a lot of TikToks that are focused on growth because I'm very focused on growth as a person, and it motivates me to be better. But on the downside, like on the flip side, if I was someone who, and I have been, down in the dumps, not sure where to go, you get into that loop of content that's just sad and makes you want to cry. And I'm someone, I'm not going to lie, that will search for that to just kind of soak in my sadness, So, like, there's that downside of, like, you're going to get fed how you feel. And, again, there's so much on TikTok that it also make you feel like you don't need to go and do any more research. People will call themselves experts. Like, I'm an expert in this on TikTok. And you might trust them because they seem a lot like you. They seem smart. They seem to know what they talk about. So they don't give you any reason to doubt what they have to say. So you don't go and do any more research. So it's kind of like you're being spoon-fed and you're believing this information because you have no reason to doubt it.
The other thing, too, is it brings up a great point. A great point is that I think this isn't new, this conundrum here of people relying on experts for information.
Yeah.
Like even before the internet, it was the television. Before television, it was the newspaper.
Yeah.
And before newspaper, and before even print, it was these large, usually for the most part, religious organizations that like usually would tell you X, Y, or Z or whatever it was. So there was always someone that was an expert in the field, and you either had to trust them because either you didn't know how to read, because again, people
were not literate.
People weren't literate to think about that. And it's also sad to say that there's even kids now that aren't illiterate, which just blows my mind. I learned this the other day. I was like, what? There's kids that don't know how to read in the U.S.?
There is?
Yeah, it's insane. That can be a whole topic of conversation for a different podcast, but there is. It's insane. But yeah, so there was always this like thing you had to build trust on. Again, by the way, like I just said that thing. There's kids in the U.S. that don't know how to read. You have to trust me on that. In this case, right? So because I read that one or two, I think it was 2 articles that I read on this, and again, I'm trusting.
Context matters in that situation. Though.
Yeah, exactly. So like where we've always sort of like trusted experts in all different types of field, whether it's tech or politics or healthcare or like our doctors, right? Or anything else, automotive, mechanical. Like there's these experts that you trust. You take your car into the shop. You're gonna trust their opinion because they're an expert in that field. So we've always had this sort of like thing where we trust a individual.
I think sometimes though that trust is forced because you have no choice but to trust because you don't know yourself. So I think there's always been that point in life where you have to trust someone because there's no way you could know that they were wrong unless you go and you go and do the research.
Yeah,
but
in
certain times in life there wasn't that ability to go and do this research, or like the time, for instance, like
you would have to go to a library.
Well, no, like not even that, but like if I go to a mechanic and they say your catalytic converter is fried, or I don't know, I have to trust them. I don't know anything about catalytic converters. I don't know what it does in my car. Who am I to say you're wrong, unless I had the experience and expertise that they did. So in that situation, you have to trust them. And in some situations, you go to a shady mechanic, they may just be giving you run for your money, but you have no way to know because you don't know anything about that. And that's why I have you, because you know cars. But the other thing is the reason I think about the algorithm a lot too is because I work in SEO. And the whole thing with SEO and like content marketing in general is there's this fine line of like, you don't want to create content for the algorithm, right? You want to create content for the end user, but in doing so, you have to appease to the algorithm and what you know works. And sometimes I think a lot about creativity and how it kind of drains the creative freedom you have when creating content, when creating things that you're passionate about, because it has to fit into a certain box. So a lot of times when I think about these algorithms, I think that these creators out there, whether it be on TikTok, whether it be on Instagram, whether it be like creating a blog article, we're not being true to ourselves, and we're not being fully unlocking our creative potential because we know that whatever we create has to fit a certain guideline. Otherwise, no one will see it. Otherwise, it won't be pushed in the algorithm. And that kind of sucks. That kind of really limits what we're able to do unless something changes with the algorithm, right? Unless you're like the first to be really innovative. And I think a lot of people are scared to do something different because they also want that something different to be seen. And in order for it to be seen, it has to be seen and appeased to the algorithm.
You're at the mercy of the algorithm.
Yeah, it's like and it's funny because it's, again, like I said, it's like that fine line of like, you don't want to be that person that creates things purely for the algorithm, but you also have to acknowledge that the algorithm exists, and you do have to follow the standards that traditionally work. I work in SEO, and there are SEO best practices. There's technical SEO, there's on-page SEO where that like if you want this article to rank for this term, then you got to answer this and this and this, and like your page has to be structured this way, and like you need to have good page speed and all of these things. And it kind of takes away some of the creative liberties you can have. It's to me, it's just interesting. I think it makes us less creative, and it also means that there's some probably some great content out there that we'll never see because it's not inherently created for the algorithm.
And I would even say the same working on social, on all the different types of social platforms, YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok. I don't necessarily work on Twitter, but not just kind of seen how it has worked. And yeah, I mean, there is certain trends and certain themes and certain best practices when it comes to video, especially on YouTube, that you need to create. I mean, that you need to follow in order for your content to be discovered.
Yeah, like you need to have a good thumbnail.
Yeah, thumbnail,
it has to
title,
be optimized. Like your title has to be optimized. There has to be keywords and tags. And if you don't do any of that right, you could have a great piece of content that never gets discovered. And that's what's interesting is that it could be of great quality, but it doesn't matter if you don't have the other things. And I sometimes wonder if like creators out there feel like, you know, they are like a victim to the algorithm, that they have to create. It even gets as crazy as like what time you post. You remember like I don't know if people still do this, but people were looking at analytics of like what's the best time to post. I mean, I think you still do. Like what time should I post on YouTube, because this is when like it's gonna do the best if you post at this time. And to me, that's just.
I mean, on YouTube, there's more data around this, and that it doesn't actually matter when you're a smaller creator, but when you're a larger creator, obviously it does, because you want to make sure that you post.
It's crazy because I think that would be the opposite.
No, because like especially let's say you have like just say you're Mr. Beast and you have 100 million subscribers. Obviously, he only posts once a month. I believe.
Really?
Yeah, he posts because these videos are so large. Yeah. So people expect him to post a video once a month. But there's some other content creators that I follow, like Peter McKinnon or Linus Tech Tips, like all these other tech channels. And they have a schedule, and you know, like, oh, he's going to post a video today. So people that are obviously always like wanting to consume his content expect there to be a video to drop. If it doesn't, they're like, oh, dang, like I'm going to go watch someone else. And then next, you know, if you don't post, then there's like, oh, wait, now I'll just kind of forget about him, unsubscribe, and then you end up losing your subscribers.
Yeah.
Or a subscriber, whatever the case is. But so it does, for the most part, it doesn't matter when you're small, but it matters when you're large, when you're wanting to actually like continue to grow your audience.
And it kind of, the other thing is like you have to continue to do what you know works. And like, not to say that's bad, like, oh, like I know this works and originally this is something I love to do. Not only do you have to do like what you know works, I kind of feel like, yeah, what you know works might have been something you used to like to do, but it kind of, I think, prevents people from branching out to like something else they might be passionate about, because they don't know, I don't know how to do. And again, it kind of diminishes the amount of creativity you're allowed to have, especially when you're trying to monetize like this craft. You gotta stick with what you know is gonna succeed, and exactly. it makes doing something else more risky. And I think, I don't know this for a fact, but I can imagine like content creators feel that pressure, and that's when it becomes less of a passion for them, is when they realize they have to, again, like appease to an algorithm and not necessarily it becomes something they don't no longer enjoy, because they're not creating content for the pure joy of it anymore. They're creating content because this is what they need to do to survive, and this is what they know works, and this is what the algorithm wants based on like, this is the keyword research I did, and this is how many people are searching this. And you know, I don't know, I have this feeling, and it's so ironic because I do work in SEO, but it takes the creativity out of creating great content and being, you know, innovative, because there's a fear that if you're too innovative, Google won't be there yet, and you're too soon. You know, you're too early. You're too early for this to work. And it's hard. It's hard to make that match of like, I know this will work. I'm going to be the first one to make this work. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, it's funny, I'm talking about it when on that exact point that you're saying, is that the first person that comes to my mind that was like, that thought that same way, but trucked on and continued to do the work on in regards to video, was Mr. Beast. I know that you were going to say that. Yeah, you knew I was going to say that, right? Because he's a really inspirational content creator, did a lot to get where he's at, but he was just trucking along and trying things that, this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work. He just kept seeing what worked and what didn't, and then he found a way. And
and found like a hack, right? Quote unquote hack, because it really isn't like a hack. It's just he created something from what he was doing and blew up because of it. And the algorithm helped him because he realized like, oh wait, it's like this is actually working. And then boom, just kept stacking it on and growing exponentially. I don't think there's anything wrong with that per se in regards to like, I mean, who wouldn't want to make like, let's say if you're making like $1 million a month. What if you're making $1 million a month? Like, I'm pretty sure maybe that's what Mr. Beast makes. Maybe, if not more in a month. But obviously he has a team and all that too. So it's just like, obviously it became
But he's
a job
also
for
at a
him.
space, he's also at a place where he's built his brand enough to be able to not just know like what the algorithm will like, but also make it meet with something he enjoys doing. And I think
Yeah.
that's a good middle ground to have, but there's a lot of creators that aren't in that space but they just know what works. They know what works, and if they keep creating content in this area, that they'll be good. But then they might want to pivot because they're not interested in what they were doing before, but they're interested in something else, and they don't have as much success because they're known for, you know, something else. It's really hard, I think, especially in the realms of content creation, to pivot into a different niche.
Yeah.
You know,
Doing something else entirely.
doing something else entirely because people see you as one thing, and the algorithm sees you as one thing. They know you as like what people search you for. So if like you started a channel that was based on tech, but then you wanted to get into cars, it might be hard to pivot because people know you as that. The other thing I want to talk about too in regards to this is there's that TikToker. She's been around for a minute, and people are making some assumptions that she's an industry plant. And her name is Bobby something.
But
She
has
had
been
like
around for a while though?
she has.
Okay.
I've been watching her on TikTok for like since TikTok was a thing. And she has this podcast. It's called like Real Good Podcast or something like that. And she's had like quite a few big guests like Drake, Mark Cuban,
yeah.
Lil Yachty, and a lot of people like she's definitely an industry plant. Basically because of who she's represented by, and because like she was able to secure all these things. And that conversation reminded me of conversation I had with you about Charlie D'Amelio, and how you told me that you thought, or people were speculating that they kind of gave her the platform essentially, and made it seem like a bunch of people using TikTok, and that also a bunch of people followed her, and like kind of made her like this icon of like the first TikTokers, you know.
Can I
and
explain
like
that?
yeah, you can
I'd love to
that.
explain this. So, because Sunny brought this up, it was during the very early days that it was already the name. It was Musical.ly at one point, but then
And
it
then
obviously
turned
turned
to
into TikTok. So it was very early TikTok, and pretty much every social media platform has done this. There's records. There's even the original creators of the platform even have said this. I'll talk about Reddit, for example, is that when Reddit first came around, there wasn't enough people on the platform in order for other people, real people, to actually communicate with other people. So what they did was they created a bunch of bot accounts that would like people's posts.
It's like Silicon Valley.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you've ever seen the show Silicon Valley, they hired some click farm out in India to like grow its user base to make it look like it artificially
had a
started
bunch of
growing.
users.
So the more actual real users came, and then
Because
they would
saw a
slowly
bunch of people.
exactly, and they would slowly like start deleting the bots. And in this case, Reddit did that. So like they grew Reddit using bots, and slowly but surely there's that inflection point, and that's what they call it, where it just spiked up, and then by that point there was actually enough real users for them to just delete all the bot accounts. And there was enough organic traffic that the ecosystem of Reddit survived, and even to this day is still around. With TikTok, on the other hand, there wasn't enough people on it still at the time. It still didn't appease to a certain audience. It was just like still like young girls, because it was still like Musical.ly. So there's speculation that TikTok did artificially grow some users in the US and in other countries in order to attract people like them. So like people that liked Charlie or that were like Charlie, they're like, oh, that girl that's a dancer. She was on Dance Moms. She was
on Dance Moms.
Wait, what was it? Wasn't she on Dance Moms? Or
No,
something?
she wasn't. She was a dancer.
She was a dancer. Oh, I thought her mom was on Dance Moms or something like that.
No.
But she was a dancer, and it was a thing at the time to just do dancing TikToks. So TikTok artificially grew her
Platform.
her page with, again, these bot accounts, but enough people then drove and follow her and subscribe to her to the point where they didn't need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And they did it to a certain amount of accounts in order to grow the platform, to get enough, younger Gen Z people. And then next thing you know, those other creators started also creating their own TikToks and doing their own thing to the point where it's at now. Not to say that there might still be some bot activity out there, because again, even on Twitter, even on Facebook, all these other platforms, there's still like bots out there that artificially like people's content in order to like boost your numbers. And it's been known for a while now that even the music industry uses bots in order to artificially inflate people's views and also streams on platforms to like get them to a certain top chart, and then oh wait, who's that person is number 50, and then it starts to organically
It's essentially
grow.
an algorithm, though, because if you can get up to the forefront of people, then they're gonna be in the algorithm, and that's what's crazy is when you think about it. It's like, it's not to say like, for instance, like not to say like Charlie D'Amelio isn't talented or anything like that, but it's to say like, had it been done organically, would she have the same success? And again, we're speculating that it was bots. Like, we're not saying that it was. It's all speculation.
Yeah, it's all speculation.
But like, again, it's like how we're influenced to like our favorite creators actually our favorite creators because we really like them, or because like those are what's being pushed to us. And I think that's like, it's a hard pill to swallow. Like, is this something I actually enjoy, or is this something I think I enjoy because this is what I'm constantly, looking at? This is what I'm constantly fed. Like, is TikTok, like, are these people actually, I mean, because I like to think that like a lot of the creators I like because they have great personalities, and they grew because of their great personalities. But when I think about algorithms and all of this stuff, I start to question that. Like, did they grow by mere chance because a bunch of people like connected with their content, or did they grow because there was enough people to realize, like a lot of people would like her if she got in front of the right people? And like, is it chance? Can you grow your platform like organically, or without like really being dedicated to appeasing the algorithm? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, that's something that just is like mind-boggling for me, is thinking about that. Because I mean, even us recording this podcast, we're gonna put it on YouTube. We're gonna try to appease to the gods of the algorithm and say
Clip
like,
it, get
and
the best
like
parts out,
play, like show this to people, show this as many to people. This is what it's about. And it's ironic because like it also shapes how we decide what we post and what our topic ideas are, because we want to make sure it aligns with what people want to see while also aligning with what we want to do.
Yeah. And
limiting our creativity, because we have to make sure it's like on this fine line that we're, I don't know the word, that we're like walking on.
Yeah.
I guess. And yeah, I think the other thing too about the algorithm, like this is probably the negative side, is I don't know if you've ever been on a site TikTok that makes you think you have like a deadly disease.
Oh,
but
it's like WebMD?
ADHD or like.
Oh yes. Oh my
But there was like a bunch of like, there's a while for like TikTok was like, if you have these symptoms, you most likely are this, or you most likely have this, or oh, you should go to the doctor. And I'm like, man, I do have that. Like, am I dying, or do I have ADHD, or do I have all these other things? And like, I think for the most part, the people posting videos like that are coming from a good place, because they're like, man, I didn't know I had this, and I found out, and these were my symptoms, and they want to share with other people. But at the same time, you have people out there like me that I'm a bit of a hypochondriac. I feel like there's something always wrong with me, and I've seen people who are like, yeah, I had thyroid cancer. I'm like, do I have cancer? And I'm like, no, Sonny, you don't have cancer. But the algorithm is feeding me all this stuff. I'm like, why are you letting me watch this? Like,
that's a really good question. I mean, on that, for example, there's people that self-diagnose themselves with things that they don't have just because someone said on the internet, in this case,
Yeah.
right? And that's dangerous because
No, it is.
It can be like, oh, I'm self-diagnosing. I'm not saying that I am. I'm just saying in general, there's people that self-diagnose themselves with Tourette's or with like other psychological disorders that they only are saying they have X, Y, Z, whatever it is.
Because
fill in the
they
blank,
think.
because they saw someone else talk about it and someone else said that they
Had
felt the
these
same
symptoms,
way.
yeah.
Or even symptoms, even let's say it's physical symptoms. Sometimes it's just because they feel a certain way. So like, oh, I am X now, whatever it is. Not to get too controversial, but because like I saw this thing and now I saw enough of this content to like get me to like believe that I am whatever this is. But in reality, it's just like these algorithms, this is that danger. This is like those dangerous, these are like the dangers of this, you know, in regards to that. Like there's certain things that it can be good for, like WebMD. Back in the day, it's like, I have a headache. First top of Google search, you have cancer. It's like that was
Brain
such
tumor.
a brain tumor, and that's basically what TikTok
You
is
know,
nowadays. It's just
yeah.
telling you like, it just tells you have this.
It makes you think that because you're getting fed this content that's like related all to this thing, and you relate to these people, you think that like you can because you know people that where this was the actual outcome for them. You're like, well, they had it, and I have the same symptoms, so I don't even need to get checked. I know. And, like, that is the danger of it because, like, that's not how the world works. You still should probably consult a doctor or, like, consult someone
healthcare provider
to see, like, what's going on and not trust someone on TikTok.
And then even doctors can be wrong, so find a doctor you actually trust.
Yeah.
So,
Like, it's second opinions, third opinions.
Yeah.
All of that kind of stuff. And, yeah, it's just, it's interesting to see, like, that's how we kind of determine, like, that's how we see the world is through what we consume online. And I think that's the other dangerous part is that when you think about it in the terms of growth, because obviously this podcast is about growth, there could be a lot of things that aren't going to foster you becoming a better person or that aren't going to foster your growth. You know, for one, I mean, scrolling on TikTok isn't really going to foster your growth either.
Scrolling on
and
TikTok
like
is not gonna do that.
I'm guilty of it because I love TikTok. I love watching videos, and I do that like, you know, when I'm in the bath or like, you know, just mindlessly scrolling throughout the day sometimes. But at the end of the day, that's not going to help me be a better person. And really no social media. It's not just TikTok. Like me scrolling on any platform isn't going to lead me to where I want to go, you know? But like we're so addicted to the internet and like to what's online because there is access to like so much information nowadays that it's almost overwhelming. But it kind of makes us forget about like the here and the now. And, like,
reality.
The life of, well, not just reality. I mean, TikTok is reality at some point. Like, you know, there's people posting videos. I post videos. I posted a video today on TikTok talking about Roth IRAs and how I think they make them complicated on purpose because they don't want people to have financial freedom.
No, I'm not saying that's not
but like
reality,
that's my reality is that like I am very confused
by. But I mean, like you said, like the here and the now, like me and you and our neighbors or friends having actual conversations.
Yeah.
Like that's like in our sense, that's like the people around us, you know, or the community or church you go to, like that's like actual like reality and community versus like again, you can harness community.
I do think
online.
that that's the other thing is I think the intention behind all social media was to foster that community, was to find people that might not be in your vicinity, but that there are people out there like you that exist or that you really resonate with that exist. And for instance, like artists. I mean, you used to connect with artists through the music, and now like there's a lot of artists on TikTok that make also like silly videos or like, you know, I think about like Noah Kahan. I love Noah Kahan. I think he makes beautiful music, and honestly, I probably wouldn't have found him without like some of the social media because it's an easy way to connect with people that you might have never connected with before. And that's the good part is that you realize that you're not alone in this world, that there are other people out there like you, and you can connect with people that aren't right there in front of you. And I mean, that's the benefit of it. But at the same time, there's also the negative aspect where there's people out there that don't have your best intentions, that are gonna, you know, there's a lot of negativity when, you know, I mean, I've gotten hate on TikTok where it's like, you're stupid, like, you don't know anything about, like, stuff I said on the podcast about growth and, like, how, you know, I've personally have felt and people felt the need to judge. It also gives people an access to make them feel like they have a right to say something to you about your life or your opinions. And, you know, that's kind of the downside, is that people get to, you know, determine how they see you and, like, who you are based off videos you post online.
I mean, that's always come. I think even it's not necessarily something new. I think it comes to the territory of just putting yourself out there in general, not even on the internet. Like if you were, let's say, to run for mayor or, you know, maybe something in your local community, you'd have to put yourself out there, go out and, you know, lobby, or not lobby, but go out there and, you know, go speak in public. And there would be haters in the audience, the same way that there's haters in the community or the freaking comment section of videos or whatever it is. It's just it's more magnified on the internet, because you can actually see it versus someone's actually either thinking it in their head or, you know, having the like balls to say it out loud, right? That's why a lot of, like, every time I get like a hate comment on even my own content, it's like, dude, you're just some guy on the internet. Like, I'm pretty sure what you just said, you probably wouldn't say it to someone else's face.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people will say these like ridiculous things. It's like you probably would never say any of that to someone's face, whether it's hate or something rude. So that's the way I always look at it. I'm like, okay, cool.
It gave people kind of space to hide behind, to say like, you're not good enough. Yeah. And I mean that's the downside, is that, like, we've created these platforms for people to just, I don't know, hide behind and kind of put people down. And I think it's kind of the sad thing, is that I think more often than not, it's people, like, what goes viral and what gets pushed sometimes is something that, like, what people are, like, hating on another person. And, like, ironically, that when you're hating on someone, even if you comment on the video and tell you this is so stupid, that does get it pushed further in the algorithm. That whether people like it or hate it, it gets pushed further in the algorithm because people strongly disagree with it, and it's an interaction. And, you know, we don't think about the impact it has on the person who posted that video. And, like, you know, whether they're right or wrong or not, that's still a person at the end of the day. And, like, that can impact not just how they see themselves, but how they see the world. And, you know, I'd like to hope that people can have a positive view of the world, but it's harder when you see, like, so much negativity online. And I've experienced it when I post stuff for this podcast, or, you know, we used to post clips on YouTube. And I had people telling me that my parents raised me wrong, and that, you know, that's not just a diss to me, that's a diss to my parents, saying, like, I was raised wrong or that I'm stupid. And, like, would you say that? I used to think about it, like, when I worked in retail, people would say really mean shit to me. And all I could think in that moment was, would you say that to your child? How would you feel if someone else was saying that to your child? Because at the time, like, when I worked at a grocery store when I was 17, people would say the rudest shit to me. And I'm like, you realize that, like, I'm probably the age of, like, your daughter or, like, your son if you have kids, and how would you feel if someone was talking to them the way that you talk to me? And it's so funny because people don't see that when they comment something rude on someone's video, or, like, I don't know, they feel like kind of that's the game of social media. You sign up for it when you decide to post videos, and I just don't think it should be like that. But, like, again, the algorithm benefits off people interacting, whether it's good or bad.
Whether it's negative or positive,
it can be detrimental, like, for someone who does get a lot of hate comments on a video and is like, well, everyone saw this, and maybe I'm not so proud of it, but the algorithm pushed it because everyone hated it, you know? But it kind of goes down to, like, okay, well, the algorithm sucks. Like, the algorithms are, like, not necessarily working in our favor, although I think their intention was. What do we do about it? And the first thing I thought about when we were talking about this was how Silicon Valley, that show is essentially trying to create like, what is it, like a new internet?
Yeah,
because there's that like that guy. What's the name of the company?
Pied Piper.
No, but the other one.
Oh, Huli.
It's yeah. So there's Huli, and
Yeah,
Huli
Huli.
runs everything, and it's like tech company. It's like basically Google. You
It's
know,
basically Google,
it's it's a parody of like what Google is, because Google owns like 90% of the market share, and so they want to create Pied Piper, and it's going to be a decentralized internet. And I'm not saying we got to go as far as that when it comes to algorithm, right? But I think when I was reading on this too, there are like people who have done studies on like the algorithms and the impact they have on society. And like, it's about, for instance, one person suggested that there's a option to turn the algorithm off. To say, don't feed me what's in my algorithm, but to turn the algorithm off.
So would it just be like
I think it'd be unfiltered at that sense.
like in chronological order, or would it just be like if you looked
Chronological
up-
order, but like also just unfiltered.
So like Google, how would that work for like a search? Because right now, obviously, if you look up best cars under $5,000, like you're going to get an article that's obviously very well.
Well, you might not get an
search
article.
rank.
You might get like an actual search that says these are cars that are $5,000, under $5,000. It really depends on search intent. Usually, like for instance, if I type in marketing software, it's most likely going to either lead me to blogs that say like the 7 best marketing softwares, or actual landing pages for marketing softwares, because they're assuming that like I'm looking for a marketing software, and I'm not looking for information about a marketing software, but I'm looking for like an actual marketing software so I can read about it. Whereas like if I looked up how to do X, I'm looking for information.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what that would mean for like a Google platform, but I think for Google it's different. I don't know. But like for social media specifically, like for like TikTok, Instagram, I think it would be an interesting test to see like what it looks like without the algorithm. You know, what. And I get it. The thing is, the algorithm also, because there is so much content, it's kind of necessary to have something to filter, you know, like so people aren't like overwhelmed by content. But, and there's obviously things that we should not see.
Oh, of course.
That are dangerous to us.
Yeah, there's dangerous.
But,
there's things that I think. Yeah.
I think the whole thing that we didn't even mention here too is that, yes, algorithms are creating with like machine learning or an AI, but there's a human behind it training like training AI to know what to look for. And I think that's inherently like what all humans have bias. You know, what's right, what's wrong, and like what people should see, what they shouldn't see. And like there's always going to be that issue because you can't make a perfect, like there's no perfect scenario, I don't think there's a perfect fix when it comes to like an algorithm for consuming content, or like what content we should see, or like given that there's like, you know, in Google search, it'll tell you how hard it is to rank for a keyword based on like kind of basically how saturated that market is, and how there's like other companies that have higher domain authority. Like if you're trying to rank for like marketing keywords, HubSpot like ranks for a lot of them. Probably a lot of them are very hard to rank for because they're highly searched, and you know, it makes it hard for a smaller brand to try to like capture that market share. So they have to find different ways.
And then there's also the fact that HubSpot, in regards to like, I mean, that's a whole other topic of conversation of like HubSpot or other companies similar to HubSpot, how they have their own way of kind of like policing who's allowed to post on there or use their services. So then you're kind of like, if you're for whatever reason not allowed to use their services, then you're kind of left out to dry, and because you're not able to use their services.
I'm not talking about using their services.
Like, I'm just saying, like in general. So like if you're creating something, whatever it is, and the platform or website, Google or whatever it is, doesn't favor you because of, again, we're talking about bias, because they're biased against whatever it is you're doing, whatever it is you're creating, then it's not going to get it's not going to get shown to people for what, fill in the blank, whatever reason. So then there's that too as well, and those are other things that these algorithms are doing, is like whether it's whatever for community guidelines or whatever reasons they want to give. It's also something that can be obviously kind of dangerous because like why are they doing these things to begin with? But that can be a whole other topic of conversation regarding the algorithm. But yeah, the only reason I brought that up is because it made me think of that. Like, wait, like obviously, like the algorithms do these things, and like what can we do about it? And like turning it off would kind of help. But then there's like, it reminds me of like the algorithm being like your local library, right? There's this bunch of books everywhere, all along the shelf. And the algorithm, AI, is the librarian. You tell the librarian, hey, I want a book.
This.
What's that?
You're like, I'm looking
for this.
Yeah.
And like if it was a good librarian, they would ask him more questions. Like, oh, like do you like X, Y, or Z? And if it's a really good librarian, they wouldn't just give you a book they like. They would try to give you as many options based on what you like. And I feel like the algorithms nowadays are like, it's like a librarian that like wants to give you something based on based on its bias versus based on all of the
based
other
on
options.
what it thinks you want.
Yeah.
Based on what you type in.
Yeah, because like let's say you're looking for a book on, I don't know, like an ancient philosopher, but for whatever reason the librarian's like, oh well, these books are banned, so I can't give you those. But it's like, wait, I want to know those books that are banned.
Well, the algorithm currently wouldn't tell you.
No, I'm just saying it's an example.
Wouldn't not show you what books are banned. You'd still be able to search that. It's like.
Well, I mean, if there's like a guideline reason, right? Like, oh, I actually can't serve you these options because these are against our guidelines. There's not. Yeah, well, I mean, that depends on your search, but like there's certain things that if you try to look up on Google, it's not going to give you a search, obviously because it violates their guidelines. Like or they're just think of like the worst things on the internet. Like think of the worst things on the internet. Like that's not safe for a human to like look up.
Well, yeah, well that makes sense.
Like, yeah, and there's also the
what
thing,
I'm saying like is like if you looked up on Google like these banned books, it's gonna give you what books.
Oh
banned.
no, of course.
So then you'd have the information of what's banned. Like then you could still go and get what you wanted. Yeah. And like the thing with like Google claims that like they're trying to make sure that you're getting for one what you want, that it matches your intent, and like they're constantly refining their algorithm to make sure like so they're looking at like the bounce rate of the page. Like if I typed in marketing software, but then I clicked on the first page and I didn't get what I wanted, and a bunch of people do that. They click on the page, click off because it wasn't what they wanted. That page is gonna soon fall in the ranks because Google's realizing that's not what people wanted. So they're trying to figure out what people want, but at the same time, it's not a perfect scenario because, I mean, if you think about keywords, sometimes like when I even like analyze how I type things into Google and like what I'm actually looking for and how often I actually get what I'm looking for. And sometimes Google doesn't have an answer for me because either not a lot of people are searching it or there's just not information out because the question's too specific. And
I've looked stuff up like that where I'm like looking for an answer for something and it's like no articles are even closely written to it, or it's like really old information.
But then the other thing is being that I work in SEO and like I know how to get things to rank.
She's the SEO queen. Yeah.
Sometimes it kind of makes me not trust like what I read on Google because I know what it takes to get something to rank. And obviously Google is trying to make sure things are factual and true, but it also kind of like after working in SEO, it did give me like a whole distrust for like Google as a whole because I when you know like it's like when you know how the bacon's made, you know? So like that's kind of how I feel is like I know how things rank, so it's not. It just creates. I don't know. I don't trust Google as much as I used to.
Yeah, no. I mean,
and not to say it's feeding me wrong information, but it's like I can pick apart like why something is number one. You know why it's ranking well, and yeah, it's just interesting because like you think that when you're typing in like what you want to see, the germ control. I got this result because this is what I wanted. But you got that result because this is what Google thought you wanted based on those words you typed in and based on, like, it even goes down to, like, how if you used a plural or, like, not a plural, you know, like a singular. So, like, it's interesting how Google defines the intent of your search, and just the algorithm's impact on what we see. And I think what we see and what we consume online affects how we grow as individuals and how we see the world. And I don't think that's something to be taken lightly, and I think that more social media platforms need to think about how what people see and consume is going to affect how they see the world and how they see others, how they see themselves.
Yeah.
And I think it's even more important when it comes to how we see ourselves, because it starts with us. It starts with how we see ourselves in the world. And if we don't have a good view of ourselves, we're not going to have a good view of the world we live in either. And yeah, I just think about that a lot. I think that sometimes we create things and we don't think about, I'm sure no one thought about the impact of social media before it was created, because you have an intention. You start with an intention, and probably a good intention, but you can't predict sometimes where things go and how things are used. A lot of times companies want to tell you how to use a product, but really the consumer is going to tell you how they want to use a product.
Yeah.
And like we've told basically these social media companies how we want to use their products, or in some ways they've shaped us to use their products a certain way.
Yeah, the way that it was designed or tailored versus like how it was being used. And also the other thing to consider is the fact that most either physical products or in this case like software or platforms, they try to design it with the user in mind, but oftentimes they forget.
You have a bias though too.
Yeah, that we
of
have
what you think that people want.
Yeah, it's like, or even then from an engineering standpoint, like, oh, well, people might actually use it in a different manner or whatever it is. But yeah, not to get too like into the nitty gritty, but I remember like Facebook back in the day when people, when they realized that video was performing better than photos, what people would do is they would make photos animated.
Yeah, and so it looked like a video.
And then look like a video, and there was like literally memes that were like going viral because they had like a moving object in the photo, or it was also like a carousel of them, and those things would just go super viral. And then they figured out, oh wait, like that we designed the platform to not do that, so then they had to go ahead and re-engineer it again to prevent that. And they're like constantly updating things like that. Facebook is a whole other beast. It's insane.
No, and then like when TikTok became a thing, like other platforms started to favor video because they realized short form video was doing well. So like every other platform tries to adapt to that, and it makes, again, I think it takes creativity, because like it also makes it harder. Like if you think it from like a brand perspective, not every brand has the resources to like go and make videos every day. It's not necessarily easy. Like it's a skill in itself, and
I mean,
what?
I mean, it really depends. I mean, if you want to blow up on TikTok right now, I'll give you one good example of something you can do is you can stand in front of a camera on your phone, obviously in a light. If you're a good-looking girl and just pretend to act like an NPC and just say "ice cream so good" over and over again, you'll make a bunch of money.
Ice cream so good. Yes, popcorn.
So that's what I'm saying. One of those things that TikTok originally made this thing where you can like tip people, and
It's on live stream though.
Obviously it's a live stream
You have
feature.
to be able to live stream.
Yeah, you have to like get a certain amount of following in order to live stream. I think we're almost there actually. I think you have to get like 1,000 subscribers.
We have 1,000 followers on.
And then you can live stream. But what I'm saying is you have to grow your page enough.
I mean, whatever makes some money, man. If you see me out there on TikTok, ice cream is so good. Don't say anything.
That's what I'm talking about. Is like that's one of those things. Like they probably. I mean, again,
I don't even know where
know.
that's what's crazy. It's like one day that doesn't exist, and then the next day it's a huge thing, and everyone's doing it. Because I tell you, I didn't hear about that for like a while, and then I started hearing people talking about it, and I started seeing the live streams come up. I'm like, there is no freaking way this is.
Some of those people are making like $7,000 a day just by doing that.
I'm telling you, bub, if you see me on there tomorrow, live streaming, trying to get like some money in the bank. No, like, but it is interesting. And again, people do that because like that's what started to trend, and like it's all based on, I don't know. It's just all mind-boggling, and I'm not to say like it's all bad, because I think that there's some good that comes of a lot of the content. Like I'll get really cute puppy content, or running content, or like motivational content, and that does lift me up. But there's also the downside, and I just think that we have to think about that. I think when we think about the algorithm and like people who manage this algorithm, you got to think about the overall impact it has on society. And I think that's something that we don't often talk about, is that these algorithms ultimately will affect how we see ourselves, how we see the world, and how we progress as a society. And it's something I think it's something we've just come to terms with, like we've come to terms with that there's this thing that decides what we get to see or what we don't see. And yeah, I just think about how it does. Yeah, it affects how we grow as people or don't grow because we feel that, we can't. I don't know. It's weird, but yeah, I mean, I think the people behind the algorithms need to think about that. They need to think about what can we do to make it an actual better experience for people, an actual maybe good impact. I think the other thing too is that like good is subjective for some people.
And what is good?
Yeah, what is good? Yeah. What's bad? What's harmful? What's all of that? It's all subjective, and that's the problem. Is that at the end of the day, there's human behind training an AI for what to see, and like there's only so much we can do, and yeah. But I mean, I think it's interesting to talk about because we don't often. Even when I was doing research, the irony of it all is I was looking up like the history of the algorithm, and obviously I'm on Google, who's feeding me something off an algorithm based on what I wanted to see, and honestly it didn't give me what I actually wanted to see. It gave me articles like the latest 2023 social media algorithms, what they are and how they work, and I'm just like, this is the most SEO thing ever. So if you made it to the end of the episode, please like this video if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, or if you're listening on any podcasting platforms like Apple or Spotify, please leave a review. It helps us a lot. And yeah, this has been Going Together with me, Sunny Vasquez.
And me, Cesar Santos.
We hope to see you again next week.
See you guys later.